Hello everyone, and welcome to Club One. Today we are going to we've started a new series, and we're going to talk about type 1 diabetics who are super achievers in their field. So today with us we have Ashok Alexander. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Nupur. Good to be
Thank
on
you
this
for
forum.
joining us. Would you tell us something about yourself, how long you've been type 1, and a little bit of background about you?
Okay, so I'll introduce myself quickly in two ways in terms of my diabetic credentials. I've been diabetic for
Wow.
36 years, of which I've been type 1 for about all but 3 of those years. In other words, I started as
Right.
type 2 maturity onset because I got diabetes when I was
Okay.
28. Uh, and I've carried on since then, gone through all the ups and downs of T1. But the other way of thinking of myself, I don't think of myself as a diabetic primarily. I think of someone who's had reasonable success at work professionally. And I've lived a kind of profession now in public health, which is very physically active. I work primarily in the field. Let me say what I say. I worked a lot of my career with
Okay.
McKinsey and Company, which was a very trying
Right.
place to work, a lot of travel. Then I switched to public health, which is entirely a field job. I work in villages of Rajasthan right now. And so I'm constantly in trains and driving in remote areas and all kinds of climates. And I think I feel younger as the years go by. I tell all the people in my office who work for me who are average age 30 to 35 that I'm the youngest person in the office. I
That's
really mean
amazing.
it. So, yeah.
That's really wonderful.
So that's what
So
I
so
am.
do you have your own organization?
Yes,
Okay.
I do. After I left the Gates McKinsey, I set up the Gates
Oh,
Foundation
wow.
in India. I spent 10, yeah, I spent 10 years setting up that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in India. We worked primarily in
Right.
HIV/AIDS, and then I always had this kind of idea of starting my own NGO, which is called the Antara Foundation, and we've been running for four
Wow.
years. Uh, in when I worked with Gates, what we did was worked on
Mm.
HIVs, and we worked in 6 states all across India, from Manipur right down to Karnataka. And now I work in maternal and child health. I work in remote villages of Rajasthan.
Wow.
So I'm rarely sitting around at a desk. I'm just moving around all
So
the
we're
time.
lucky we got you
So
to spend some time with us today, and I'm sure you have a really busy schedule. We won't take too much of the time.
no, 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 no. It's absolutely a privilege and a pleasure. And if I can say two sentences that would help another fellow T1, especially young people,
Right.
I'm more than happy to do it.
You've been T1 for 36 years. That's really wonderful to see that, we have somebody to look up to in terms of not just, like you mentioned, your identity is not just a diabetic, it's also so many more things. You have so many causes that are close to your heart. And I think it's, for most of us, a huge part of our brain just goes into managing day to day diabetes. That's something really
Sorry, Nipur, I just to interrupt you, I didn't mention the fact that I have several passions outside of work. In fact, I'm a painter. I just finished a book which is being published next month, which is a little plug for the
that's
book. And I do various things, photography. So I live a full life. It's not all about just
correct.
work as well. I'm married. I have 2 children, so
Right.
or 2 men rather, I would say. Yeah.
That's lovely. So, would you tell us a little about your diagnosis? How is it, all those years ago? I'm sure there wasn't much information out there.
Well, I was going through some classic symptoms. I was constantly thirsty, going to through the bathroom all the time, passing urine all the time, drinking huge amounts of water, and then when I started losing weight,
Right.
getting very thin, so to speak, someone said I should go see a doctor, and then the diagnosis was straight away. It's uncontrolled diabetes. I probably had it for some time without knowing, God knows how long.
You were
Um,
20,
so that's how it
right?
happened. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
you were 28 at the time of diagnosis.
I was I was 28 at the time. Yeah.
How was it for you in terms of you've spent your childhood growing up without diabetes, and suddenly when you've grown up, you've started your career, and did it seem like an impediment at the time?
Well, when I first got it, I didn't really understand the implications of it. I didn't understand how tough it and challenging a life as a diabetic and a T1 in
Right.
particular. I'm talking primarily to a T1 audience here, how tough it is. So I kind of said, okay, I mean, I to avoid sugar, that kind of thing. Uh, but yes, I won't pretend it's the same as not being T1. But like so many things in life, you just have to
Right.
adjust to it. I mean, if I have one message, is that if you're disciplined and you can adjust your situation, you accept what it is and do what is necessary, there's absolutely nothing you can't do. And I'm absolutely, I
Exactly.
think, I'm not claiming I'm such a great guy, but I'm an
Correct.
example of that,
Correct.
right? Uh, a lot of people have, this condition for 10 years and they mess themselves
Correct.
up totally. Well, I'm still around after 36 years and I hope to for some time.
Absolutely. Do you think, in your opinion, would it have been easier or more difficult? So a lot of us were diagnosed as kids. I was diagnosed when I was 8 years old. Uh, what would you think in terms of adjusting to a new way of living? It wasn't a big deal as a kid for me because I just did what my parents asked me to do. But as an adult, do you think it was tougher?
I think a lot of yes, I got it as an adult, so it's a little hypothetical that question. But I think that it cuts two ways. Children are well taken care of by their parents, but I think I'll come to this in a minute. A problem becomes when parents look after their children a little
Right.
too well, if you understand what I'm saying. So when the child is ready to go to college or leave home, then there's a big kind of
True.
disconnect. In my case, well, what can I say? It is a challenge. There's no question about it. And it is sometimes a downer. There's no escaping that fact. But
Yeah.
it's a condition. People have far worse conditions than this, than being T1. Far worse. Far,
Yeah.
far worse. When I got diagnosed today, I mean, when you are diagnosed, you have the benefit of all kinds of things. You can test your blood sugar 5 times a day. You can wear a pump if you like. You can read and talk to people like you who are very experienced. When I got it, you used to test your urine from a test tube, right? Heat it up and look at it and see how the color changed. It's only so there was a lot of it was just shooting in the dark. The sad fact is today, with all of these things available, I still see people shooting in the dark who never test their sugars, who are very cavalier
Right.
about it, and so on. So I think of T1 as a kind of, well, it is in a way, it's not a friend, it is the enemy, but an enemy also respects you when you know that there's no fooling around with you, that you are going to do whatever you can do. That I think is the attitude, the only attitude.
True. So, from back when you were diagnosed, you mentioned there were test tubes that you used to check your urine sugar, and I've also heard that syringes used to be boiled. There were glass syringes. So, how does it feel? Now in the age of the pumps and the libres. I mean, obviously the newer stuff, the newer technology is a big help. But what do you feel about the stark difference? I mean, in our lifetime, I mean, I've seen phases where there were no glucometers. So what's your take on that? I mean, what would you want to say?
I think if anyone is diagnosed
Yes,
T1 today, life is a lot more easy to manage than it was
correct.
years ago. Just as today, people who've been diabetic even 5 to 10 years know that 5 to 10 years ago it was far more
Yes,
different. If you look at all the research happening, and if it's anything positive to think about, little children will see a cure for
true.
diabetes in surely within 10 years. maybe 20, some people say 5. So it's not a
Yes.
life sentence. There's something to look forward to. Stay healthy till then. I won't be around to see that, but a lot of kids will be. That's a very positive way of
Absolutely.
looking at it. Can you keep yourself healthy till then? Uh,
Fine.
and in the meantime, do what
Right.
it takes. What it takes to me are two sets of things. One is sort of physical things, which are like testing your blood sugar, carrying your
Correct.
supplies. The other are emotional things and more of attitudinal things. The both go together, and I think the second are perhaps
More
even
important,
more
definitely.
important.
Fact,
Yeah.
what really worries me is parents of little children, and these days I'm told that the age of diagnosis is also going down. There are kids who are 2 and 3 years old and they're being diagnosed. So there was this parent of a little girl who, walked up to me and said, "I am really worried how my daughter. I wonder if she'll ever get married." So for me, this is something really shocking, and I mean, how would you react to what would you tell that mother?
I think that I would say, unless they are very careful and thoughtful about this, they can really actually do some harm to their children by being over considerate, overprotective, and so
Right,
on. Children, and especially diabetic children, must always feel that they are no different. Someone's got this condition, someone might have some other medical condition. You just adjust to it. If as soon as you start making your child feel that you need more protection, more care, more sheltering from the world, that will become the problem. But that child will never stay a child when you're entering the teenage years, which are always
yes,
challenging. I've had friends who had this kind of protective thing with their children. Then the child becomes 14, 15, and she says,
correct,
to hell with it. I'm going to eat
correct,
what I want. When she's 19 or 20, the parents want to move in with her, go to college with her, do all that stuff. Young people are adults today. Encourage your children from the earliest age to read, to educate themselves. Never make them feel as though they are weak or weaker or
correct,
different. Don't make them feel as though it's their fault that if they took some sweets one day or ate something, that they're a bad
correct,
boy or girl and she shouldn't do it. Parents need to understand that they can be a bigger problem by their over,
correct.
uh, how do I say, being over
Right.
careful. You can be careful without
Yeah, without
doing
like
harm.
smothering your child, almost. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Seriously.
So do you think? Yeah,
This is the one single message I see all the time. And and I think,
yeah.
if I might say, perhaps Indian parents are more prone
I
to that
agree.
than
And I think that's also a problem of the
elsewhere.
times, I think as newer generations come in, parents are overprotective, and they want that cocoon for their child. I mean, it's not wrong to care, but it's almost claustrophobic for a lot of kids.
Yeah. I would also, I have become fairly late in my thing, a follower of a low carb
Right,
way of eating. Uh, Maybe I'm not, as extreme as many people are in denying themselves carbs, but my total carb count of what I eat has come down from, say, 200 plus carbs to less than
that's wonderful.
50 carbs. In the process, my HbA1c has come down. I was quite out of control recently when I was,
Yeah,
traveling and not being
right.
careful enough. It came down from 8.9 to
That's lovely.
7.1 in a matter
Correct.
of months. I'm not denying myself
Right.
anything.
That's really good to do,
Uh,
and it's really
so,
heartening to see that I think once people realize that there's nothing that stops you, there's nothing that binds you down. You can live as wonderful a life and as full a life, and in fact probably be fitter and stronger. You mentioned in your office, or everybody who's in the range of 30 to 35, you're way more energetic. That's really I think more than the type ones, it's their parents and caregivers who would be extremely reassured. So,
yeah,
sorry, yeah,
I must emphasize that this is a question of attitude. the child gets the attitude that initially from the parents, but as an adult you need to have a certain attitude which is a little how do I say it, it's a little aggressive
Right.
towards the condition. It's, to hell with you. I
Yeah.
mean, watch out. I'm
Correct.
taking care of myself. And physically, not to believe, there's nothing. Look, I'm
Yeah.
64 years old. I travel in strange places. I carry my own bags. I sometimes offer to help my teammates lift heavy things. Um, it's fine. I get a trainer, come home. I walk a day. You have to do these things and feel good about it.
Wow.
And I can't say, I'm not standing up. If you saw me, it's not as though I look like I'm, you know,
Absolutely.
but I just, yeah, I try to stay healthy.
Yeah.
But the physical things are very, very important. The things so for example, I always not only carry my strips and my meter and everything, I carry a second set of that.
Correct.
Because what happens if you're on a flight somewhere and
Stuck like.
your system breaks down and even your blood testing kits or your strips are lost?
Yes.
So somewhere you must have another bag packed which has got the same thing,
I think
exactly the same thing
that's
packed up.
wonderful advice, to always have a backup of everything that you need.
Yeah. Then the other thing I've got, I hope, yeah, let me point this out to you.
Sure.
I recently got this thing. I don't know whether you can see it.
Like a pouch.
So when I'm traveling, I wear it around my neck like that.
Yes, yes.
If But you must never ever go even 10 feet without the stuff in your
Supplies.
pocket.
Yeah.
Your life can depend.
That's so true.
So
There are things that type ones are worried about, from my interactions with friends and peers. Things like, will I get married? Will I be able to have a successful marriage, kids, the whole thing? So, what's your take? What would you tell them?
the answer is yes, you can get married. And I would also say to, if the question is to women, that if you find some person there who doesn't want to marry you because you're diabetic, then definitely it's the wrong person.
Correct.
So there are many, many normal people around the world who don't have such attitudes.
Yeah.
And yeah, so absolutely no question. Look, diabetes is no longer a stigmatized, rare thing. It's become fairly common.
Right.
So that's not an issue. I don't think should be an issue.
Yeah.
As for having babies and children, I have friends on this forum themselves who had babies. I asked them about it, and they've done it. I mean, I'm not a medical person, so I can't say much more than that. But several women I've known who are mothers.
And I think the
Right.
wonderful thing is that, like you mentioned, it's all about the attitude. It all boils down to that, isn't it?
It's entirely about attitude.
Right.
We should all wear t-shirts saying it's entirely about attitude.
I
And
Yeah.
that's it. Life is just too full of possibilities to let something like this get in the way. Now, having said that, we all know that T1 is not a great, T1 can be a very tough thing to deal with.
Right.
There are days when we all feel down, and sometimes we feel really, really down. And you kind of say, it's too difficult, it's just too tough.
Right.
We should also accept that this is also part of the deal. You will feel that way. And if you don't feel that way, that means you're not testing your blood sugars, probably.
That's really true. Yeah.
If you're testing your blood sugars, you'll feel that. Or you'll get a sudden, unexplained hypoglycemic episode. So the thing to say is that, look, I am feeling down. That's part of the deal. And to accept it and lift yourself out of it. Don't struggle with it.
Yeah.
Again, the worst thing others can be around you is over solicitors. Oh, are you okay? Can I get you something?
Yeah.
Can I do this? Just leave the diabetic alone for a while.
Yeah. Let him fend for himself.
Yeah. And don't ever blame a diabetic adult or child for what the situation. It's not their fault. They're not bad people. And if they even ate something they shouldn't have, fine. They're not bad people.
Yeah.
It's not their fault.
Right.
And I'd also say another thing: if you are diabetic, don't hide it. Tell your friends, tell your teachers, tell anyone. It's better that people know. In fact, people should
Good
know.
know, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think that's really relevant in our Indian context, because there's a lot of people out there that don't talk about it openly. So this is a very important point. I don't see why. I mean, I'm the kind of person that goes around telling people, hey, you know what, I'm type 1.
well, when I started work,
Yeah,
I was in New York doing a very difficult job with McKinsey. A lot of people quietly told me, look, you don't have to announce that you're diabetic here because you may not get placed on the right assignments.
hmm.
So I said, okay. And I didn't really speak about it too much. If you'll notice, there are a lot of health conditions that were once highly stigmatized, and now people talk about it.
Correct.
TB, for example, was a scandalous thing to do. Now, if someone's had TB, okay, I'm not coming to work. I've had TB. I'll be gone for the next 2 months. Um, Everything, even up to, all kinds of health conditions have been destigmatized. Diabetes, it's a, you know, one should in your own to take care of yourself, your co-workers, your family needs to know about it. Now I'll say this, at the end of the day, if you're T1, it's really only another T1, I believe, that who knows what you go through.
Yes.
Even those closest and nearest and dearest to you haven't really experienced
Yeah.
some of these things. That's why I think a forum like this one, which I joined yesterday, by the way, is a great thing. Uh, it's a great thing to do.
That's wonderful. Have you ever felt that type 1 has been something that has come in between you and your professional achievements? And if yes, then what did you do to overcome it?
Has it come in the way of my professional achievements,
Yes.
you mean?
Yes.
No, it hasn't, because I've had a good professional career, so it hasn't, obviously.
Right.
Would I have done even better professionally? No, I don't think so. But it has come in the way in certain situations. So, for example, if I'm giving a talk on stage,
Right.
it happened to me. Actually, it's only happened to me once that I stood up in front of an audience, and then I couldn't exactly remember what I was going to say. And I just said in front of a lot of people, look, I have to test myself. People looked at me in an odd way,
Yeah.
and my sugar was very low. I realized I was going through some confusion.
Right.
So they had to talk about it, and I just left the room because I didn't want everyone being solicitous. So it's things like that have happened
Correct.
once or twice. And then you feel pretty bad about it because you say, I embarrassed myself. And then you have to go back to that mantra,
Yeah.
it's not your fault.
Correct.
Right? What the hell? If somebody else had got sick, would you be angry with them?
Not at all.
My suggestion to people is develop a mantra, literally, and tell yourself it's not your fault. This is just a condition. How good you are or bad you are in terms of your sugars is entirely yours to handle. It's in your hands. And there's a lot worse things in life.
True.
Just look around you. I happen to work with some of the poorest of the poor people
Right.
in villages and so on. I work with sex workers and HIV. See the courage with which they live their life.
Right.
We have all the privileges, most of us.
That's true.
We should be grateful.
I
T1,
agree. In fact, I think that's the one thing that's really kept me going personally as well. Gratitude is really top of the list. Once you realize your problems are not as big, there's a lot you can go out and do. So I'm going to ask you one last question. What words of wisdom would you share with our young T1s and their parents?
well, I've touched on some of them, but I think the very important thing is to educate yourself
Right.
on, because there are a lot of myths about, diabetes. Educate yourself on what does HbA1c mean. uh, really get into it. After a while, you really, I mean, it's literally, more than your doctor does. And a good doctor will ask you, what do you think we should do?
Right.
There's so much to read on the net. So I would say, and it's never too, it's not that somebody 9 years old can't read and learn about these things. So one is educate yourself, and it's particularly important for parents to do that. The second is to be be very safe. T1 is not a can be a very dangerous thing. Carry your supplies, test your blood sugar several times a day. I do it 5 times a day. It doesn't, we all know it doesn't hurt,
Doesn't
right?
hurt, right?
It doesn't hurt. It's nothing.
Yeah,
You don't even feel it.
feel it. Yeah,
Test it. Third, don't try to hide it. Don't be embarrassed. If you have to test your blood sugar and you're in a meeting, you'll just say, hang on, I got to test my blood sugar.
correct.
So what are people going to do? Are they going to collapse? I mean, because you said that.
Yeah,
So, and fourth, have the attitude of being a fighter and try to, odd as it may sound, try to have a sense of humor about it.
yeah,
Don't get all down. Oh, I'm diabetic. My A1C was lousy. I felt hypo last week. So what the hell?
yeah. Move on.
Go on, move on, get on with it. Don't be don't mope about this stuff. It's a pain. People who do that are painful. I don't want them around me.
Right.
And don't become one of those people. Radiate energy and
Positive.
positivity. If things get you down, allow yourself to be down. That's also normal.
Correct.
And parents, I can't say enough to you. I've tried to set, but go educate yourself a little bit. And don't get intimidated by doctors also. A patient has his or her bill of rights.
True.
Ask the doctor, why exactly are you saying this? And so on. Doctors, there's a difference I feel from doctors in India and abroad. Abroad, the doctor listens to the patient a lot. Says, what exactly do you think we should do? You know best.
Correct.
Uh, One should search for such doctors also.
Correct. And I think that this ties back to your first point, where you say educate yourself. So if you're educated enough, a doctor also knows he can have a conversation with you.
Yes, yes. And most important, talk to other T1s.
Right.
Not T1s whose HbA1c is 10.5 or 11. Talk to people who got it to some level of control. Ask them how they did it.
Correct. I think the whole
Have,
feeling of community is really uplifting.
it's been actually for me less than a year. This is the third one,
Yeah.
but there's one called Type 1 Grit, which I find extremely useful.
Right.
There's another one called something called Emotional, Type 1 Emotional, or something like that.
Right.
It's also nice. Those are good groups. The Grit one I recommend, though it's sort of like by invitation. But if one gets onto that,
Right.
I think it's a very good thing. I would also say, and this is up to people to take the option or not. I learned a lot by looking at this Dr. Bernstein's approach to the whole thing.
Right.
I would say at least it's worth looking at, and then you can decide whether you want to. I personally think it's done me a lot of good. I wish I had found this 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But better late than never.
Correct.
So,
Wow, that's been a lovely time chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time, and we know you are really packed and busy with your schedule. So we look forward to your book, and thanks once again for being with us
yeah.
and sharing.
Am I allowed to give a little plug for my book?
Absolutely.
It's called A Stranger Truth. A Stranger Truth. Look out for it. I think everyone people might enjoy it. It's coming out next month.
That's lovely. We really look forward to it.
Thanks, Nupur.
Thank
Great
you so
talking.
much. Nice talking to you. Bye bye.